in the heart of Europe, where mist drifts through mountain valleys and rivers gleam beneath the moon. Austria keeps its secrets well. Behind every ivy-covered wall and crumbling gate lies a whisper, a soft echo of love, loss, and eternity. The castles that once guarded empires now stand as sentinels of memory, their stones warm by day and watchful by night. Tonight, we wander gently through their silence, through rooms where candles once burned for lovers who never returned, and towers that still hum with forgotten songs. You'll hear the faint rustle of silk in empty corridors, the sigh of a harp from a ballroom that no longer exists, and footsteps that fade just before you turn to see them. This is not a journey into fear, but into reverence, a quiet meeting with the souls that time refused to take. So close your eyes, breathe with the rhythm of the night, and let the stories guide you through Austria's haunted heart. Welcome to Whispers of Old Castles in the Night. Story 1, Muscham Castle, Salzburg. Deep in the Lungau region, where the forests whisper beneath the Alps, stands Muscham Castle, a fortress of stone and silence. It rises from the hills like something the earth itself has been trying to forget. The air here is still, cool even in summer, and the scent of pine lingers as if time never quite moves forward. They say the stones of Muscham have absorbed too many stories. Once, this was a seat of power, a place where judgments were passed, and witches were condemned beneath flickering torchlight. But centuries have passed, and the cries that once echoed through the halls have faded into something gentler, something quieter. On nights when the wind curls through the corridors, the sound can almost resemble the rustle of skirts, or the soft murmuring of prayers whispered to no one. You might walk through the great hall and notice how the light bends strangely near the walls, how the candles tremble when no draught should be there. Guides will tell you stories of Count von Muscham, of prisoners who vanished, of a black carriage seen on stormy nights at the gates. Yet those who linger after the crowds have gone will tell you something else that the castle breathes, not with malice, but with memory. The deeper you wander, the quieter it becomes. The dungeon smells faintly of iron and rain. Somewhere in the distance, a clock ticks, though no clock has worked here in years. A faint melody, perhaps the echo of a harpsichord, sometimes drifts through the air, so delicate it could almost be mistaken for imagination. Locals say it is the Lady of Muscham wandering through her chambers, still awaiting someone who never returned from war. Others believe it is simply the castle itself, remembering all those who once walked its halls. Whatever the truth, standing there in the half-light, with mist rolling over the parapets, you begin to understand this is not a place of fear, but of endless waiting. And as you leave, descending the worn stone steps into the night, the air feels heavy, as though something unseen has followed you to the edge of the forest, watching, quietly grateful to have been remembered. Story 2, Burg Kreuzenstein, Lower Austria. North of Vienna, where the forests of Lower Austria thicken into shadow, Burg Kreuzenstein crowns a hill above the Danube. It looks almost too perfect to be real, its towers and bridges like something from a dream, or perhaps a memory that refuses to fade. But beneath that beauty lies a strange stillness, the kind that lingers in places built from older stones than they appear. The castle was reconstructed in the 19th century upon medieval ruins, each arch and tower carefully lifted from fragments of the past. But some say not everything that was brought here came from this world. The builders salvaged doorways from churches, stones from monasteries, and iron gates from burial crypts. Each carried its own whisper, its own secret. Together, they gave Burg Kreuzenstein more than just walls. They gave it a soul stitched together from centuries of silence. Those who stay past dusk often describe the same feeling that the castle listens. Footsteps echo longer than they should, as if another pair of feet walks a few paces behind. In the chapel, where candles burn low against frescoed ceilings, one might hear a sigh faint and close, like a breath at the back of the neck. There are stories of the countess who watches from the window overlooking the Danube. They say her husband left for war long ago and never returned. And though her body was buried elsewhere, her longing found its way back here. Sometimes, just before the first frost, her figure appears in the tower light, gazing toward the river, waiting for sails that will never come. But perhaps the most haunting sound is that of the old armory at night. When the moonlight spills through the narrow slits, the armor glimmers faintly, as though something unseen shifts within. Some claim to have heard the clang of a sword dropped, a metal whisper that fades before it reaches the air. The caretaker, when pressed, will only smile softly and say, "The past has good manners here." It doesn't frighten, it reminds. If you linger a while longer, you might feel it too, that tender melancholy in the stones. That yearning for voices that once filled these halls. The breeze that crosses the ramparts feels like a sigh of relief, as if the castle is exhaling after centuries of keeping its secrets safe. Beyond the gates, the Danube moves steadily, indifferent to the passage of time. And as the night deepens, the sound of distant bells drifts through the fog, a soft lullaby from the river below, carrying the dreams of those who never left. Story 3, Schloss Moos, Styria. In the quiet countryside of Styria, where the hills soften into fields of silver mist, there stands Schloss Moos, a manor so peaceful in daylight that one might forget it has lived through centuries. Its facade, pale and cracked, reflects in the still pond before it, the image rippling as though the house itself is breathing. By dusk, when the swallows vanish into the trees and the last golden light retreats behind the hills, the air begins to thicken calm, but aware. Schloss Moos is not grand like other Austrian castles. It has no towering keep, no gilded ballroom. What it has instead is an intimacy that feels almost human, narrow corridors that twist like the veins of a dream. Low ceilings that hold whispers instead of echoes. The scent of wood smoke clings to the air, and in some corners, the faint sweetness of lavender, as if someone still tends the rooms after dark. The locals tell a story about the woman who once owned this place. They say she lived alone after her husband disappeared into the mountains one winter and never returned. Each evening, she would light a single candle in the window, facing the road, in case he found his way home. When she died, no one dared to extinguish it. For years afterward, travelers swore they could still see the light glowing faintly through the fog, even when the house had long been abandoned. Those who have stayed overnight speak of gentle footsteps that circle the upper floors, not hurried, not restless, but rhythmic, like a nightly ritual. The sound of doors closing softly, the rustle of skirts turning a corner just ahead. Sometimes in the music room, where a dust-covered piano waits beside the hearth, a single note will hum hesitant, fragile, and then gone. It's as though the house is keeping her routine alive, following her pattern long after memory should fade. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the faint scratch of a match. The breath before a candle flickers to life. Outside, the pond reflects the moonlight with such stillness that you could mistake it for glass. And if you walk along the edge, you might see her reflection there, not her face exactly, but the shimmer of light moving where no light should be. When dawn comes, the mist lifts, and the house looks ordinary again, only walls, windows, and silence. But beneath that calm lies something tender devotion that never learned how to end. And as the morning bells begin to ring from a distant village, you might think of her, the woman with the candle, and how even forgotten places remember love longer than people do. Story 4. Burg Bernstein, Burgenland. High on a rocky hill in Burgenland, where the borderlands breathe with ancient wind, Burg Bernstein stands quiet among chestnut trees. Its walls, thick and dark, carry the weight of 6 centuries. From afar, it looks serene, a noble silhouette rising from the forest. But up close, when twilight stretches long across the valley, it hums with a stillness so deep you can almost feel the heartbeat of the earth beneath it. The locals call it the Castle of Shadows, not because of fear, but because of what it remembers. Within these walls once lived generations of noble families, each leaving behind echoes, laughter in the great hall, footsteps in the courtyard, and secrets that never quite faded with the centuries. They say one spirit, gentle yet persistent, still roams here, the Lady of Bernstein, a countess whose compassion for the poor during times of famine made her beloved by the village. She died young, they say, her final wish left unspoken. Yet on cold nights when the rain whispers against the shutters, a light glows faintly from the old chapel, though no one is inside. Guests who have stayed in the upper rooms speak softly of their dreams here. They are never nightmares, but always vivid, a sense of being watched with tenderness. A warmth near the hearth, though no fire burns. Sometimes they hear the faint sound of lace rustling against stone, as if someone in a silk gown is passing by, pausing just long enough to look at them with quiet curiosity. The air inside the castle carries a scent that no one can quite name. Part roses, part candle smoke, part rain-soaked wood. And when the clock strikes midnight, it's said that a shadow crosses the great stairwell, not frightening, just human, gliding gracefully as though descending for a ball that ended long ago. The caretaker once told a visitor that he had seen her himself not as an apparition, but as a shimmer of pale light reflected in the window pane. She loves this place, he said softly, and the house loves her back. Outside, the wind curls around the battlements, carrying with it the low hum of crickets and the far-off toll of church bells. If you stand long enough, watching the stars fade one by one, you might catch it, a soft sigh, a whisper of silk, the brush of time itself moving past your shoulder. And when dawn paints the stones gold once more, the castle feels alive, content, almost smiling, as if its ghosts, so long accustomed to silence, are grateful for your company before returning to their quiet rest. Story 5, Palais Tedesco, Vienna. In the heart of Vienna, surrounded by the hum of modern life and the echo of carriage wheels long gone, stands Palais Tedesco, elegant, stately, and faintly melancholic. Its windows look out toward the opera house, yet there is something withdrawn about it, as though the building listens rather than speaks. At night, when the city quiets and the street lamps cast their golden halos on the cobblestones, the palace begins to remember. Built in the 19th century for the Tedesco family patrons of music, art, and whispered scandal, it became a sanctuary for Vienna's creative souls. Brahms himself once walked these halls, and it's said that his music still lingers here, woven into the very air. Sometimes, and when the city sleeps, faint notes drift through the stairwell, the kind of melody that seems to come not from an instrument, but from memory itself. The staff who worked late claim that the mirrors in the ballroom are never quite still. Candles reflect twice, and sometimes the reflection lingers a moment too long. One cleaner swore she saw a woman in a pale gown dancing alone, not eerie, but graceful, gliding across the floor in a waltz no one else could hear. When the woman turned, her face was soft, her expression distant, as though she was lost in another century entirely. There are letters from that era, love letters, unfinished, found in the walls during a renovation. One was written by a young pianist to the daughter of the house, a secret romance that never found its ending. The words are faded, but tender. Some say the waltzing woman is her forever waiting for the last note, the final dance they never shared. Visitors often describe an odd serenity within the palace. The air is perfumed faintly with lilac and dust. The chandeliers hum softly, as if catching the vibration of a distant orchestra. When you close your eyes, you can almost feel the swirl of gowns, the laughter echoing up the stairwell, the gentle warmth of candlelight on marble. If you listen closely beneath the hum of the city, you might hear the rhythm 1, 2, 3, the pulse of a forgotten waltz still spinning through time. And for a moment, you could swear the floor beneath your feet shifts with the memory of movement, as if the past still knows the steps. By dawn, the music fades. The mirrors are still again, and the city wakes without ever realizing that behind those silent windows, someone is still dancing endlessly, tenderly, waiting for the music to end. Story 6, Schlosshotel Welden, Carinthia. At the edge of Lake Wörthersee, where the water lies still as glass beneath the moon, Schlosshotel Welden glows like a lantern from another time. Its golden facade, mirrored in the lake's quiet surface, has witnessed centuries of laughter, longing, and silence. In the daylight, it is a place of warmth and luxury. Voices echo softly through its marble halls, and sunlight dances through tall windows. But when night folds over the lake and the wind carries the scent of rain and pine, the hotel seems to fall into reverie. The story begins long before the hotel existed, when this land was still a manor owned by a nobleman whose heart was said to be more fragile than his fortune. He loved a woman from the mountains, someone far below his station, And though their secret meetings by the lake lasted only one summer, her laughter lingered in his memory for a lifetime. When she died in a sudden storm, he ordered a great house built upon the very spot where she had last stood, looking across the water. So she might still see the lake, he said. Now, even in its transformation into a hotel of marble and glass, guests sometimes feel her presence, a softness in the air, a coolness at the edge of their dreams. Those who stay in the rooms facing the lake often wake to find their window curtains billowing gently, though no breeze moves outside. Others hear faint footsteps along the balcony, pacing in rhythm with the water's slow tide. One night, a violinist performing in the grand salon claimed that as he finished a sonata, a single tear-shaped drop of water fell from the chandelier above, cold, silent, impossible. He said the air changed then, heavy with emotion, as if the walls themselves were remembering a love too beautiful to fade. Locals say that when fog rolls in from the lake, you can see her silhouette walking along the shore, not in sorrow, but in peace. She pauses near the reeds, her reflection merging with the silver water, before vanishing with the dawn. The hotel embraces her presence quietly. A candle is always left burning near the window of the suite that once overlooked her favorite view. No one knows who lights it, but it never goes out. And as the night deepens, with the lake whispering softly below, you can almost believe the nobleman was right that love, once bound to a place, never truly leaves. It lingers in the ripples, in the walls, in the hush between notes of a song that refuses to end. Story 7, Schloss Salzburg, Tyrol. In the deep valleys of Tyrol, where mountains fold around the sky like great sleeping beasts, lies Schloss Salzburg, a castle perched halfway between earth and cloud. It overlooks the Inn River, its turrets wrapped in ivy and memory, its courtyard echoing faintly with the tread of centuries. From a distance, it looks untouched, like a painting hung in the still air. But those who walk its halls after dark say the castle hums softly, patiently, as though speaking in its own quiet language. Built in the 16th century, Salzburg has survived wars, fires, and the slow erosion of time. Yet its spirit seems unbroken. Some say that's because the family who once lived here never truly left. The sound of children's laughter is sometimes heard in the old nursery, faint and distant, though no one has slept there for generations. Candles, extinguished for the night, have been found burning again by morning, their wax barely touched. The guides will tell you of the silver room, where intricate murals gleam in the candlelight, and of the hunting hall, where the portraits of noblemen watch with painted eyes. But they rarely mention the story whispered among the locals, the tale of Elizabeth, the young daughter of the first owner. She fell ill one winter, so suddenly that even the priests arrived too late. Her room was sealed for mourning, and when the doors were opened months later, a single fresh rose lay upon the pillow, though the garden had been buried in snow. Since then, each December, when frost coats the castle windows, the scent of roses returns. The servants once found petals scattered on the floor, damp with dew, though no one had entered the room. And sometimes the faint sound of a lullaby, a soft hum carried through stone, can be heard from the tower. Visitors who stay near that wing describe feeling strangely calm, as if watched over by something gentle and kind. One woman claimed she awoke to find the air filled with the faint shimmer of golden dust sunlight without a source and a small rose placed on her bedside table. It was gone by morning, leaving only the scent, lingering like memory. Standing on the balcony at night, you can see the entire valley sleeping below. The wind moves like breath, carrying the sound of distant bells from the village. In moments like these, it feels as though Schloss Salzburg is not haunted at all, merely dreaming of warmth, of lullabies, of a child's laughter caught forever between time and stone. And when dawn breaks over the Alps, the castle glows with a light so soft it seems to remember every soul that ever loved it. Story 8, Schloss Rosenau, Upper Austria. Between quiet meadows and dense forests near Zwettl lies Schloss Rosenau, a Baroque palace painted the color of faded cream and rose. Its gardens bloom gently in spring, with fountains that murmur like half-forgotten prayers. But when autumn arrives and the fog curls low over the fields, the palace seems to grow introspective, a place adrift between worlds, where footsteps echo just a breath too long. Once, Schloss Rosenau belonged to the Knights Templar, later to Freemasons who transformed it into a sanctuary of silence. Even now, the symbols of their order remain carved in the stone suns, stars, and eyes that watch eternally from the walls. By day, these carvings seem decorative, but by night, they shimmer faintly under the moon, as though light bends differently here. The caretakers will tell you the palace hums with energy, not frightening, but alive, in the library where old Masonic manuscripts rest behind glass. The air always feels a little warmer. A faint scent of beeswax and ink lingers, as though someone had just been writing. And if you sit very still, you may hear the soft scrape of a chair moving somewhere in the room, the echo of a scholar who hasn't realized centuries have passed. There's also the legend of the candle that burns on its own in the blue room. Guests who've stayed there have woken to find the wick glowing, though it had been snuffed hours before. Some believe it's the spirit of a Masonic philosopher who died mid-ritual, searching for a divine truth hidden in geometry and stars. They say he wanders still, tracing invisible lines in the air, building temples of light that only the soul can see. But Rosenau's quiet is not one of unrest, it's reverence. The palace feels like a heartbeat slowed by centuries, still pulsing with purpose. Standing in the courtyard at dusk, with mist rising from the fields, you might notice how the birds fall silent, how even the fountain pauses between breaths. The air itself seems to listen. A visitor once described it perfectly. It's as if the castle is remembering something too beautiful to speak aloud. And perhaps that's what Rosenau truly is, a vessel for silence, holding the echoes of those who sought meaning in the infinite. As the stars appear above the forest, they mirror perfectly in the reflecting pool, and for a moment, you feel suspended between earth and sky, neither awake nor dreaming, only still. The night here is velvet soft. The wind carries no chill, and if you linger long enough, you might sense them, the quiet thinkers, the watchers of light still guarding their secret peace. Story 9, Burg Hardegg, Lower Austria. On the edge of the Thaya River, near the border where Austria meets the Czech hills, Burg Hardegg rises like a dream of stone and shadow. The town below sleeps early, and when the lights go out, The castle becomes the only presence left in the landscape, a silhouette carved against the stars. The river moves silently beneath it, reflecting its towers as though the earth were holding a mirror to its own forgotten face. Berghaardegg is among the oldest in Austria, its walls older than memory itself. It has seen wars, treaties, and centuries of solitude. Yet despite its formidable frame, there is a gentleness in its silence, like the pause between two verses of an unfinished song. Travelers who pass through the valley often speak of feeling watched not by eyes of judgment, but by something that remembers them, something that recognizes the living among its ghosts. The most enduring legend is that of Bertha von Hardegg, the young noblewoman whose kindness during a siege became her undoing. She is said to have tended to wounded soldiers in secret, both friend and foe. When the plague reached the valley, she refused to flee and nurse the sick until she succumbed herself. Her final wish was simple: to be buried overlooking the river, where she had often sat as a child. They say she still keeps watch. At dusk, when the mist rolls in from the Thaya, a faint figure is seen upon the battlements, a woman in pale robes, her hair catching the moonlight, her gaze fixed upon the flowing water below. The villagers call her Die sanfte Wache, the gentle watcher. No one fears her. In fact, they say that when the fog is thickest and danger nears, her light appears, guiding travelers safely down the narrow path. Inside the castle, the air smells of moss and candle wax. The chapel holds an eternal hush, broken only by the creak of wood or the flutter of a bat's wing. Some visitors hear footsteps following theirs along the stairwell, a slow, even rhythm that stops whenever they do. Others feel the faint warmth of a hand at their shoulder, protective, steady, almost motherly. If you sit near the ramparts and listen, you'll hear the river's soft conversation with the stones. It's easy to imagine her voice in it, murmuring prayers in languages no one speaks anymore. The breeze carries the scent of wildflowers from the valley, her favorite kind, they say, and for a moment, it feels as though the centuries dissolve, leaving only tenderness. At midnight, the stars lean close to the fortress walls, reflecting on her unseen vigil. Berghaardegg sleeps wrapped in her care, a relic of love so steadfast it outlived the body that bore it. And by the time dawn returns to the valley, the mist drifts away, leaving behind only the echo of water and the faintest trace of roses in the air. Story 10. Hohen Salzburg Fortress, Salzburg. High above the city of Salzburg, where clouds gather like memory over the spires and river, stands Hohen Salzburg Fortress, vast, silent, eternal. It watches over the old town as it has for nearly 1,000 years, its white walls gleaming faintly even under moonlight. From below, it seems to float, suspended between heaven and earth, too ancient to belong entirely to either. By day, it welcomes visitors with music and laughter. But when evening falls and the streets below grow hushed, the fortress becomes something else, a place that remembers more than it reveals. The corridors wind like thoughts, leading to chambers where whispers hang in the air long after the sound has died. The scent of limestone, old parchment, and candle smoke lingers in every room. There's a legend that the fortress was once protected by a magician, a quiet man who loved the city but feared its wars. To keep the people safe, he cast a spell that bound the fortress to the mountains themselves. in return, he promised never to leave its walls. Centuries later, when his name had been forgotten, guards began to speak of a shadow seen near the bell tower, moving slowly at dawn, always pausing to watch the city awaken. Some say it is him, still guarding Salzburg in silence. Others believe it is the echo of those who once lived and died here, monks, soldiers, dreamers, their stories mingling like candle smoke, inseparable and soft. At night, if you stand within the courtyard and close your eyes, you can hear the faint rhythm of life below a carriage wheel, a church bell, the murmur of the Salzach River. Yet here, above it all, time feels suspended. The fortress doesn't speak, it hums. A deep vibration felt in the bone, like a lullaby too old to remember the words. In the great hall, where banners hang like faded sighs, a draft moves gently through the air. Some visitors say it carries the sound of distant chanting. Others hear music, faint and haunting, perhaps the echo of a medieval choir that never truly stopped singing. But the most enduring mystery lies in the small chapel near the edge of the rampart. Late at night, when fog curls through the arches, a single candle sometimes flickers to life on the altar. No one knows who lights it. Guides find it burning in the morning, the wax pooled but untouched by smoke. The flame is steady, never trembling, never hurried, as if it knows it belongs there. From the tower, the view stretches endlessly, the mountains veiled in silver mist, the river gliding below, the sleeping city breathing softly. It is a scene of peace, of time held gently still. And perhaps that is the true enchantment of Hohensalzburg, not in its ghosts, but in its serenity. As the first light of dawn brushes the walls, the fortress seems to sigh a long, slow breath and then settle once more into silence. Now the night grows quiet again. The stories fade, and the world rests in stillness. Sleep well until our next haunting.